Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com, and we may feature your email on the pod. The Women's Sports Weekly bracket for March Madness is live. It is free to join, and you can make your picks today. The winner of the bracket will win a prize, and it is a trip to the Bahamas.
Yeah, that would be nice. I think we should do something Women's Sports Weekly related.
Okay, we'll announce the prize next week. We're trying to figure out if we can get y'all a trip to the Bahamas.
Please don't listen to Carolyn.
Do people even want to go to the Bahamas anymore?
I mean, if I had a free trip to go to the Bahamas, I would go.
Yeah. When I was 16, Bahamas was the place to go.
I don't know why that's top of mind right now, but
They must have had really good tourism attractions. Bahamas is beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm not shitting on the Bahamas. I'm just saying. I feel like other things have risen to the top. Anyway, we will announce our prize next week for the bracket. You can visit our show notes in this podcast, or you can visit our link tree on our Instagram, and you can find the bracket link to sign up. You need to make your picks before the first round begins this Friday.
Friday, March 21st is the first round. So please make your picks before then in order to be entered. Outside of that, we had our first run club this past Thursday. I think it was a success for the first one.
Yeah, we're chalking it up to a success. Thanks for those who attended. We got there, we ran, and we drank some beers, just like we said we were going to.
Luckily, we had a beautiful day for it. It definitely helps with daylight savings happening, and it's so much later out after work. It's just been nice to get outside in the later hours with sunlight. So fun to meet new people and run with others and talk. We just hung out afterwards, had a drink or two, and I thought it was great. We hope more people come over the next few weeks. Come check us out at the 99ers every Thursday. We meet up at 6 p.m. We run a little over 3 miles, and then we come back to the bar. So even if you're nervous about trying a run club, I know run clubs can be intimidating. We're hoping to make this very inclusive and open to all. So come check us out.
Definitely. I even enjoyed myself, which is saying a lot because I don't like to run. We also are going to do a secret word for Run Club. So if you listen to our podcast and you go to Run Club and you say the secret word at Run Club, you will get 50% off your first beer or drink, non-alcoholic drink, whatever you'd like.
Yes. So if you're listening and you plan on coming to Run Club and plan on getting a drink afterwards,
This Thursday,
the secret word is bracket.
bracket.
This is in line with March Madness. If you go up to Miranda or Annie afterwards to order a drink and you say bracket, you will get 50% off your first drink.
Let's do it. Into the highlight reel for this week. The NWSL kicked off this past weekend. As a reminder, there are 14 teams currently in the NWSL. Boston and Denver will join in 2026 to make it 16 teams. In 2024, the Orlando Pride won it all. They were the Shield winners, so they had the best record, and they also won the championship. Mm-hmm. They are off to a strong start already, beating the Chicago Stars 6-0 last Friday.
Oof, that is a beatdown. I just remember games like that in high school when I was a goalie, and I just felt horrible after those games. I just feel bad.
To score 6 goals on the GOAT Alyssa Nair is a feat.
Yeah.
The Chicago Stars are missing Mallory Swanson, who is not playing for personal reasons. Is she following in the footsteps of her triple espresso friend, Sophia Wilson? Is she pregnant? Is she dealing something with family? We do not know. We are waiting to hear more information. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I just hope she's okay regardless of what it is.
They need her. Mm-hmm. The Chicago Stars really need her. The Washington Spirit are also going to be near the top with the Orlando Pride. They actually beat the Orlando Pride in the Challenge Cup in the beginning of March. So the Challenge Cup is when the two teams who played each other in the championship from the previous year play in a preseason matchup. The game doesn't count towards their record, but they get a trophy. I don't know. Again, soccer does weird things, but the Washington Spirit actually won the match in early March, and they actually won in penalty kicks. I think the Orlando Pride, and I think the KC Current are probably going to be the teams to watch. Trinity Rodman plays for the Washington Spirit along with Rookie of the Year Croy Bethune. Croy Bethune has been injured. She did dress for their opening win against Houston this past weekend, but she hasn't played yet.
I mean, dressing is always a good sign because if you're not in street clothes, it means you're getting ready to play. So I can understand maybe not playing in the first couple of games. Why get injured now? And hopefully she's back on the pitch soon.
The pitch. Other notable news from the NWSL, Gotham. New York, New Jersey Gotham looks very different this year. Forward Lynn Biondolo, formerly Williams, went to the Seattle Reign. Midfielders, Crystal Dunn went to the premier club Paris Saint-Germain. Would you like to try that in your French accent, Shondell?
Shondell. Wow. I think you said it great.
Come on.
How would I change Paris Saint-Germain?
Because isn't Paris Paris?
Paris Saint-Germain?
Germaini.
Hey, I'm the expert here, so just go with it.
Crystal Dunn went to Premier League club Paris Saint-Germain. I'm sure that's exactly what it is. And Yasmin Ryan went to the Houston Dash. Defender Jenna Neiswanger is playing for the Women's Super League club Arsenal. So they're looking very different. However, they still have a bunch of superstars on their team. For the Portland Thorns, as we mentioned before, Sophia Wilson is out due to her pregnancy for the year. Congratulations to her.
Very exciting. They're going to have a very athletic baby, I would think.
I know. I always wonder, though.
Because didn't her husband play football in college?
Yeah, he was some kind of athlete.
I'm pretty sure he was a big football player.
Got it.
I think. But
yeah, we don't pay attention to men's sports.
The men. But I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly.
There is still maybe a thought that having a baby can really impact your career. But we've seen time and time again people come back after having kids, come back sometimes even better.
Look at Nafisa Collier.
Yeah.
Great example. Look at Skylar Diggins-Smith.
Yeah.
These women have the work ethic that I don't even think we can comprehend. If they are wanting to get back in it, they will. And to your point, sometimes come back even better.
I think also the way we treat pregnant people has changed. I think we used to treat pregnant people, especially in sports, as once you get pregnant, you're done. And people would just stop even looking towards you, but now they're getting the right training throughout and then after. Even nutrition around pregnancy has totally shifted. The way we treat pregnant people now has totally changed, and I think that also contributes to it.
And I think it's almost smart to have kids younger when you're a professional athlete because you could bounce back. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I feel like you could bounce back. And even look at Alex Morgan after she had her daughter. She was able to come back and play several years after that. As long as people are willing to put in the work and follow what they need to follow, I think they'll just be just fine.
Also for the Portland Thorns, Becky Sauerbraun and Christine Sinclair retired. So without those three, it seems like they're going to have a lot of rebuilding to do. And then for the San Diego Wave, they lost Naomi Girma to the Women's Super League team Chelsea, and Alex Morgan retired.
Yeah, with her second pregnancy. And I feel like she just felt like she was at the end of her career and it was time.
With all that said, with all those changes, with all those movements, a new wave is here. We're seeing it on the U.S. Women's National Team. There are a ton of young players coming in, making a difference. And a lot of those young players were rookies last year, Croy Bethune, for example, and they're going to come into year two and it's going to look totally different. And then on top of that, we didn't have a draft in the NWSL, but we have all of these new rookies coming out of college. Your team may look a little bit different, but you're going to see some new superstars rising to the top.
Every time we talk about the NWSL, I'm just going to remind our Denver friends that next year we will be welcoming our own NWSL team, and I cannot wait to see what happens there.
Yeah, me neither. It's going to be so exciting.
I know. I cannot wait.
What are you highlighting this week, Danielle?
As I said last week, spring sports always creep up on me because basketball gets so intense in March. The spring sports in college start so early. Women's lacrosse is here. Would love to highlight a game. Number 7, Florida beat number 22 Navy 14-13 this past Wednesday. I will say the rankings in lacrosse are a little confusing. there are several different lists. There's like USA Lacrosse, there's the NCAA rankings. So if you read different articles about different games or see a list online somewhere, the rankings are going to be different. For this case, to be consistent, I pulled the rankings off of the NCAA website at the time of recording because I was like, I got to find some consistency here. It was so interesting. It's a little different than the basketball rankings. I feel like the basketball is a little more consistent, but for some reason, lacrosse is a little bit all over the place.
If we have any lacrosse addicts and you know about the ranking system, please send us a DM and tell us.
Like I read some stuff online that explains it, but would be curious if anyone had any thoughts on this. All the rankings are close. Florida was number 6 in one ranking and there's 7 on this. So it wasn't like far apart. But again, it does get confusing when you're reading and looking at different resources. But with all that being said, with Naval Academy being well below Florida, this was a heartbreaker on the road for the Naval Academy because they led by as many as 4 goals at one point in the game. But Florida had some key runs late in the game to put them up by 1 for the win. And when you're the team that's a 22 seed coming on the road to play a 7 seed, and you're up by 4 goals and can't close it out, just imagine how heartbreaking that must have felt for them.
You just see it slip through your little lacrosse fingers.
Oh, it's the worst. And if you've been an athlete, chances are you've had a game like this where I would lose sleep over a game like this. I'm not trying to make the Naval Academy feel worse, but I'm just like, you were right there. But head coach of the Midshipman, Cindy...
What? What was that?
Naval Academies, I know. I don't like their mascot. First of all, it should be the midship woman. Women.
The midship people?
Another word. True. But I just don't like when mascots just default to men.
Okay, but what did you just say? Because it
the
sounded like...
midshipmen.
The mid-shit or ship?
Carolyn, you know the Naval Academy are on ships. So please.
The midshipman. Can we take some time on that?
What?
What is a midshipman?
I don't know.
Well, I do because I did some research.
Oh, God.
It's a student in training to become a naval officer. So everyone who goes to the Naval Academy is called a midshipman.
Okay.
Also, fun fact, their mascot is not a midshipman because what the heck is that? Their mascot is a billy goat. Guess what the goat's name is?
What?
Bill. Bill the goat.
Love it. Actually, I hate that. Should be a more gender neutral name.
Billa.
Billa.
Bills.
Anyways, I have a fun fact about the Naval Academy. I'm going to make this about me now.
Go for it.
When I was in high school and played a bunch of AAU basketball, for some reason, now everyone, I'm very aware of my strengths and I'm very aware of my abilities. Me playing Division I was not in the cards for me. I know this as a basketball player.
You still think you could be in the WNBA right now?
No. I wish someone from up above made me better to be able to play in the WNBA. You know, Carolyn, how I feel about I know.
Yes.
I'm pretty aware
you are
of my abilities. But when I was in high school, the Naval Academy for a short period was recruiting me. They did a house visit at my house.
I wish you were a midshipman.
Could you imagine Division I coaches coming to my house in high school?
No, I can't.
And this is funny.
And not because of your ability, but because of your house.
But wait, the most embarrassing thing. Now, this was Danielle in high school. Danielle was obsessed with Tennessee. Danielle was very Danielle back then.
You got to elaborate for our listeners.
So I've already talked about my obsession with Tennessee. And my room I had 2 orange walls and 2 light blue because if you know the Lady Vols, they have the blue in their uniform, whereas the men don't. And I had a bunch of Tennessee decor and basketballs on my bed and the whole 9 yards.
And you were probably wearing Bermuda shorts with super crunchy curls.
But I thought it was a good idea to bring these coaches up to my room to show them my obsession with Tennessee.
Well, you know what? I don't think that's the worst thing.
I also did a visit to campus. The campus is absolutely stunning.
Where is it?
Annapolis.
Oh.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. The recruiting did not go very far after they saw me play again. There was a switch over in coaches and maybe I was playing the game of my life the first time a recruiter saw me and they were like, okay, we're going to take a look at this list and go back and see players. But point being, Naval Academy, minus their crappy name for their mascot, it is a beautiful campus.
But your family is very big on going to, like, you have a lot of family who went to West Point. So you...
Yes. my Uncle Matt went to West Point, wrestled and played football there. My Uncle Chris went to the Coast Guard Academy and he played football there. He might have wrestled too. My grandfather wanted me to go to the Coast Guard, so I did a whole week there. They were Division III, so that was more my speed. So I definitely could have played basketball there. I did not want to be in the military. And my cousin Chris went to the Coast Guard Academy, played sports there, and is still in the Coast Guard.
But you did like a trial week at the Coast Guard, right?
Yeah, a trial of swap summer. That was a lot less fun than my one-day visit to Naval Academy where they like had these recruits in, this and that. So anyways, if you ever have a chance to go to one of the academies, they are really cool to see. The discipline you need to go to these schools, it's next level. Wasn't for me.
Yeah, I would not survive 1 second.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. But kudos to these women and the men that go there and serve for our country, because you do have to serve. I think it's 5 years after you attend school, because you go and get your schooling paid for, and then you have to serve. So anyone who goes to the Naval Academy, they have to serve in the Navy afterwards.
And get called a midshipman the whole time.
Yeah. So sorry for the roundabout, but I feel like all of that was a little fun facts. But back to lacrosse. So head coach Timcha. Hold on. Let me redo that. The head coach of the Naval Academy, Cindy Timcha, was quoted after the game saying, "It was a heartbreaking loss today. Navy women's lacrosse put it all on the line today. We left nothing behind. It was one of our best team efforts this season, even though it doesn't go down as a win on the scoreboard." And I just feel that. Knowing how many people scored in this game, knowing how close they were being to a top 10 team, just really difficult.
The Gators sunk the ship.
Carolyn, stop. Do you think they did their big chomp?
I
You
hate the Gator chomp.
But
they chomped right on those mid-shitters.
Florida was down 11-7 with 4 minutes and 6 seconds left in the third quarter.
But they play 4, right?
They play 4. Okay. But I'm just giving a picture of, that's when the Naval Academy was up 4 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Then Florida went on a 7-2 run in the final 19 minutes. Grad student Jenny Markey scored the game-winning goal with 3 minutes and 14 seconds left on the clock. So it was tied with about 3 minutes left, and then the Gators scored to put them up. Could you imagine being up 11-7 and then the other team going on a 7-2 run? Women's lacrosse is so fun to watch because it's so fast paced, and don't sleep on it. Pick a game this week, watch it. It's so intense, and they score a ton of goals, which is super fun.
I just don't know how you're a goalie in lacrosse. We said this last season, like the poor goalies get scored on all the time. The net is small. Their little stick is big. I don't know what's happening. They get scored on
those
all the
balls
time.
are hard and they are coming at you fast, and would not want to play that position. But mentioned earlier, the head coach said this was a team effort. The Midshipmen scored 13 goals on 28 shots, and 6 different players contributed to these goals.
It is really interesting to me that you can say midshipman so well, and you had such a hard time with Sydney McLaughlin. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone.
It's way different. So freshman Alyssa Chung led all scorers with 4 goals. Then sophomore Michaela Williams had a hat trick. I know.
Michaela Williams comes from LSU and plays for the Naval Academy?
Don't confuse people. Sophomore Michaela Williams had a hat trick with 3 goals. And then senior Emily Messinese and freshman Taylor Miles added 2 goals each. As I said before, total team effort. Also would like to point out how many of these players are underclassmen, and if they stick with it at the Naval Academy and continue to grow their game, they're going to be a good team for years to come.
Are you going to be a midshipman supporter?
Maybe. Never know. Definitely got to watch another game. Also, in addition to their great offensive effort, sophomore goalkeeper Felicia Giglio, she matched a career high with 11 saves to go along with a career best 6 ground balls.
Are we playing softball now?
So a ground ball in lacrosse is basically when if you and I were on separate teams and the ball was loose and we had to fight for it, that's a ground ball, and the goalie picked up those ground balls. You're competing to gain possession of the ball.
Got it.
Basically. Now for the Gators, it was also a team effort for them. They had goals from 7 different players. Freshman Clark Hamilton led the way with 3 goals. This was also her 4th consecutive hat trick, so she is definitely someone to look out for. Junior Caitlin Davies, grad student Jordan Basso, senior Josie Hahn, junior Gianna Monaco, and freshman Gabby Green had 2 goals each, and grad student Jenny Markey had the 1 goal to win the game. Women's lacrosse is back, as I said. Don't sleep on them. I know basketball is in full force with March Madness, but hey, games for basketball don't start till Friday, March 21st. There's a ton of great lacrosse games throughout the week, so check them out. Speaking of basketball, and speaking of March Madness coming, we should talk about Selection Sunday.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Okay. Earlier, that song was coming from your phone, and I was like, who the hell is posting something with that song?
It's me.
It was you.
Whenever I think of March Madness, Christmas songs come into my head.
I agree, but I didn't know you were making a post about that, and I was so confused. I was like, what crazy person is posting that song right now, and about what?
It's me. Let's talk about how Selection Sunday works and how this field of 68 teams is selected.
Yes.
So a total of 31 teams automatically earn a ticket to the NCAA tournament by winning their respective conference tournaments. And then the rest of the field is announced on Selection Sunday.
The thing I love about this is we talk about teams all the time, like the top 25 teams we consistently talk about, right? But then you have conferences, like no one thinks about the Howards of the world. I'm shouting out an HBCU here, or the George Masons of the world, who George Mason just got a bid for winning their conference. My point is there's these little conferences that you don't really watch throughout the year unless maybe you went there or you have a connection to. These teams, they know if they don't win their conference, they're not getting in because the conferences are too small and there's too much competition in the top 25. So for these small conferences to win and to get into the NCAA tournament, that is like the most exciting thing that could happen. I mean,
yeah,
it's very
and I'm
fun.
just so excited for them because they get all the swag
Yeah.
that comes along with it, which just has to be a fun time for a team, a
For
smaller
sure.
team. As a reminder, in the major conferences, Duke won the ACC. Sorry. TCU won the Big 12. UConn won the Big East. UCLA won the Big 10. And South Carolina won the SEC. And then the selection committee gives better seeding to those with a better resume, and they use criteria. So
what do you mean by better resume?
They have criteria that they use. Everyone who gets an automatic bid, and then everyone they're thinking about to add in, they use this seeding to determine where everyone lands. So when you're thinking about where everyone has landed, think about this. So they considered bad losses. So that would go against them if they had a bad loss. So who had a bad loss this year? When Notre Dame lost to Utah in the beginning of the...
At the Cayman Islands tournament, yes. Bad loss, I would say.
So that's one of the selection criteria. Common opponents, if they were competitive in losses, their early performance versus their late performance in the year, head-to-head results, which we see a lot of, and then net rankings. So net rankings is when they sort the teams into 4 quadrants that are determined by using home, away, and neutral game results. And then the quadrants reflect the expected percentage versus a given opponent with respect to the game location. Then they look at the observable component, which I believe is just the eye test, like how do they look, their overall record, their regional rankings, significant wins, and strength of schedule. Those are all the criteria that they use in order to determine seeding. In the women's tournament, the top 16 teams get home court advantage early in the tournament by hosting the first and second game rounds. I think they're going to have to change this eventually.
Yeah, I don't like the home court advantage. I don't think it's fair. Once you reach March Madness, it should be neutral sites all around.
And they did this because they wanted people to show up. But I do think we're at a point now that people are going to show up regardless.
Yeah, and if you have a bunch of first round games in one single location where people can go and watch all these teams play, they're going to go.
I agree. And I think it prevents major upsets from happening. The chances of seeing a 16 seed beat a 1 seed is incredibly difficult when you're playing at the 1 seed's home court.
I agree.
And so I think if we want more upsets to happen, we do need to transition to more neutral sites for the first couple of rounds. The Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 are played at regional locations. The regional locations this year are Spokane, Washington, and Birmingham, Alabama. And then the Final Four is played in Tampa, Florida.
Should we go to a regional game leading up to the Final Four?
You want to go to Alabama?
I'd rather go to Spokane, Washington.
So let's get into these selections for Selection Sunday.
Yes, let's do it. You know, I have some feelings about some of these picks, and I made it very clear when we were watching at 99ers, and sorry to some fans of other teams. I got a little upset for my Notre Dame and South Carolina, but let's get into all these picks.
So in Spokane Regional 1, the number 1 overall seed in the 2025 NCAA Women's Tournament was UCLA. This is the first time in program history.
I personally think South Carolina should have had the overall number 1 seed. I understand UCLA beat South Carolina, but
once.
That's just my take. I don't know. I was a little upset with that one.
In this Spokane Regional 1, NC State got the number 2, LSU got the number 3, and Baylor got the number 4. We see South Carolina come in Birmingham Regional 2. They get the number 1 seed in that regional, with Duke at number 2, UNC at number 3, and Maryland at number 4. I honestly knew South Carolina was not going to get the number 1 seed. I really just felt it. They never get the respect that they deserve ever. They just never do. I do, though, think it's okay, because when I look at these two brackets, I would take this bracket, this Birmingham Regional 2 bracket, any day over a bracket with LSU in it. I really would.
And NC State has been hitting a high note at the end of the season, so I agree with that.
Dawn Staley did say afterwards, she said, "I'm a little bit surprised because we manufacture our schedule and put ourselves in a position to be the number 1 overall seed. I do think if you do the blind test and put our resume against any other team in the field, I think you'd pick us. That's just plain and simple." She did also talk about the net ratings, which we talked about earlier. She said, "It's not going to be motivation for us moving forward. It's hard enough to win a national championship. We don't need a chip on our shoulder. I do need to voice the fact that we put our schedule together. We've got the most quad 1 wins." She's talking about net rankings there. "If having more quad 1 wins doesn't supersede some of the hiccups we had during the season, I don't know what will." So this just goes to show that when Dawn Staley creates a schedule, she is saying, I'm taking every single one of these criteria into consideration to put ourselves in the best position to be a number 1 seed. And they don't get it. They do get the number 2 overall seed and the number 1 seed in Birmingham Regional 2.
I'm right there with Dawn. I 1000% agree with what she's saying, and that's why I got upset when the rankings came out. But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because what matters is who wins their bracket and who makes it to the Final Four. South Carolina hopefully can do that.
Let's move into Birmingham Regional 3. So you have Texas in the number 1 spot, TCU in the number 2 spot.
I roll.
Notre Dame in the number 3 spot, and Ohio State in the number 4 spot. You lost your mind when this came out.
I just do not agree with this at all. Texas, number 1, fine. Like that, I respect. I get it. That is totally fine. TCU being ranked number 2 over Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame has lost the past couple games and they did not win their conference. I know this. But when you face these two teams head to head, I think it's not even going to be close. I hope Notre Dame doesn't prove me wrong and blow it before they even get to that game, because they've been up and down. So I really hope they get their shit together. But this really pissed me off.
I get it. I think whoever did the seeding looked at the streak that Notre Dame unfortunately is on and tallied them lower. I do think, and I said this to you on the ride home, that TCU is a little bit of the Iowa pick from last year. People seem to love them. They get a little bit more credit. People love the Haley Van Lith comeback story. We've had a whole conversation about Sedona Prince, but the TCU team went from the worst in the league to now winning their conference. So I don't know. TCU faces number 15, New Jersey's own Fairleigh Dickinson University.
Go FDU. Woo!
In the first round. So are you going to stay true to your New Jersey roots and pick FDU out of spite?
I might have to.
I like it. I like that pick. All right, let's move into Spokane Regional 4. The number 1 spot is USC. The number 2 spot is UConn. The number 3 spot is Oklahoma. And the number 4 spot is Kentucky. Is Frank going to be okay? Is your dad going to be okay with UConn and USC in the same bracket?
I honestly felt bad when I saw this, but any bracket's tough. I mean, it could be any team that faces another hard team. UConn, I think, has been playing well at the end of the season, and so is USC. All these games are just going to be great, but it's going to be interesting who comes out of this bracket.
You were also very feisty in this bracket, because when Iowa got announced in the 6th seed, and as a reminder, I am more of the Iowa hater, but when Iowa got announced as a 6th seed at the 99ers, Danielle started booing.
I don't know what came over me. There were a lot of people there. I was hot, flustered, and some of these picks, I was just mad.
So as a reminder, these top 4 seeds that we mentioned in each regional, they are going to play their first 2 rounds at home. assuming that they win their first round. Do you have any early upset predictions? I know we mentioned maybe FDU over TCU. Do you have any others?
This is a hot take, but with some injuries at Kansas State, I'm going to pick Fairfield in that to upset them in the first round.
So Fairfield in the number 12 seed over Kansas State in the number 5. Ayoka Lee is injured.
Yeah.
Though we have heard some rumors that maybe she'll come back. But I think that's a good take.
What about you?
Based on vibes only, and because my sister went to George Mason, I am taking number 11 George Mason over number 6 Florida State in the first round. Florida State is good. They have the best scorers in the country. However, George Mason is connected to my family, and that's the only reason why I'm picking them.
And they've had a great story this year, and good for them. You know, I hope they win too.
Okay, so let's get into Final Four predictions. Who do you have?
Oh, this is going to be tough, but I'm going to go with South Carolina. I know a few weeks ago I said I didn't think UCLA was going to make it, but now in their bracket, I don't know who can beat them, so I'm going to go with UCLA. I have to stick with my Irish roots, especially near St. Patrick's Day. I'm going with Notre Dame. I got to stick with them, so I'm hoping they make it, and I got to go with USC as my 4th pick. What about you?
I'm going to take all the number 1s. I'm taking UCLA, which I do think UCLA could not make it out. I really do.
Yeah, I look at them in LLSU and NC State. Yeah, those could be tough games.
Yes. And then I'm taking USC, I'm taking Texas, and I'm taking South Carolina. If that does happen, this would be a rematch in the Final Four of the Big Ten and the SEC championship. So
Crazy.
UCLA would play USC and Texas would play South Carolina.
That's right.
I also go for way too many upsets in the early rounds based on feelings alone. I mentioned that I think George Mason is going to beat Florida State. I also have Iowa losing early because I just do. And then I have South Florida beating Tennessee. And I do think that's going to be a good game. But after meeting Courtney Williams and getting to talk to her about her Final Four picks, she had South Florida going all the way. And then to defend your honor as my wife, I do have TCU losing to Louisville before they face Notre Dame. But I do think either way, Notre Dame will beat TCU.
I want Notre Dame and TCU to play each other now. I don't want TCU to lose before. I want them to face off, and I want Notre Dame to crush them. That's what I want. Also, I was just thinking about this. The first Final Four we've ever gone to, and I'm wearing the T-shirt right now, was 2018 when Notre Dame won it all. And in that Final Four, UConn Notre Dame matched up. So to see that rematch again would also be fun. And that was a fun game also earlier this year. But I just thought of that. Like, that could be a potential as well.
Yeah, I do also think that UConn turns on a different gear when they hit March Madness, and they're just so dangerous. And I think they could squeak their way in. And I also think Notre Dame could definitely squeak their way into the Final Four.
I do think at this time of the season, like, coaching is going to go such a long way. And Gino has proven time and time again that the Huskies, UConn makes it. I think coaches need to prove themselves too at this point. And it's just that time of year that anything could happen.
That was what I was looking at in South Carolina's region, because during this time especially, I think about so many things. And then I'm like, are they well coached? And Duke is well coached. Maryland is well coached, which could go such a long way, which makes me a little bit nervous. Also, the SEC teams that are packed into that regional 2 make me nervous because how many times can you see a team before you finally crack it? But yeah, anything could happen at this point.
Oh, it's so good. I'm so excited for these games.
It's going to be great.
I cannot wait for the tournament to begin. With that, what are you looking forward to this week?
I'm going to stay on the NWSL. So on Saturday, March 22nd, the Washington Spirit take on the KC Current at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ION. The KC Current features the 2024 NWSL Golden Boot winner, Temwa Chawinga, who had a record-breaking 20 goals last season. So I am really looking forward to this matchup. Like I said at the top of the episode, I think the Washington Spirit, KC Current, and Orlando Pride are your teams to watch. So this is going to be a great early matchup. What are you looking forward to?
Obviously, the NCAA Women's March Madness Tournament. It will begin Friday, March 21st and Saturday, March 22nd. As we mentioned, the top 16 teams will host the first 2 rounds. Then the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 will be held in Birmingham, Alabama and Spokane, Washington. And finally, the Final Four will be in Tampa, Florida this year, which pumped about.
And if you take off on Friday, please send a selfie and tag us in it that you're taking off on Friday to watch the games.
You just keep rubbing it in, huh?
I know. Danielle can't take off on Friday.
Good times. Well, that's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.
It's the most wonderful time. Sing it with me.
No.
Of the year.
Ding dong, ding
Thank you.
dong.